Okay, so good morning fellas. This is going to be another video on something which is extremely important, and I would also recommend you exercising a lot of care when you do this, because this is life and death. This is your braking system. This is your caliper, your brake hose, which runs the brake fluid to the brake master cylinder, and then you have your lever. So this is the entire system. It's more like a hydraulic system, a piston inside. You press, pushes fluid in. Because of the pressure, it compresses the two pistons inside this. The fluid comes in and pushes onto these two pistons, and then that jams against the rotor. And when you release the lever, because of a hydraulic system in it, the fluid gets sucked in backwards and thereby pulling the pistons backwards, so it releases the rotor. It's a system that has been in existence for nearly 100 years now. All said and done, you guys need to understand one thing, that is this is not something that I would recommend anyone and everyone to do. Rather take this to a professional mech and have him do it for you. But if you just gently want to go ahead and clean the whole of it, then the best way to go forward with it is to get yourself something like this, a brake cleaner. Now with this, the advantage is you need not even dismantle this. One shot of this over the entire thing, and then rotating the wheel and grabbing the brakes at least 5-6 times should do it for you. Do this occasionally, I mean every 1,000 kilometers or so, and you don't have to tear the whole thing apart. But if you were to find this a little too expensive and a fair, and then what you can do is you can just do a general cleanup of the whole of the caliper assembly. And that's the first thing that you do is you get yourself a ratchet, a mini ratchet, and crack these two bolts open. I've already loosened them, so I'm going to be pulling it out. Pretty easy. Pull these two bolts out, 10 mm, assembly out like that. This ought to dissolve all of the road grime and dirt. And because I use sintered brake pads, I'll talk about this in a while. I use something called sintered brake pads. The debris from the metallic brake pads is going to be very little compared to the regular organic brake pads. But that being said, all said and done, you still can give it a nice shot of this fluid, and that would do a decent job for you. So now once that's done, if you guys look into this, the whole system, these two brake pads are held in place by a pin. These two brake pads float as they float on this pin. This fellow, this metal rod here, can do is, if you want to just do an overall clean from the outside, you can spray this from the outside and then go ahead and clean things with your brush. Just do a surface level clean and get rid of things. I mean, try and clean it to your satisfaction. But if that doesn't cut it for you, all you need to do is just pull this. In the earlier days it was split pins, but now you have something which is like a pin that can hold on to this particular pin. This is also called a pin on its own. I mean, now all that needs to be done is for you to push this out. Yeah, maybe tap it a bit and then pull it out, but yeah, we'll go ahead and do that now. Rest the whole thing on a surface, and then Okay, so that's me having managed to pull the pin out, and this is the pin on which the brake pads float. They move up and down as and when you press and release. Now if you watch very carefully, you can pull your brake pads out easily, 1 and 2, without any trouble whatsoever. Scrub. Quick clean. I mean, not an extensive one. I do it every now and then, so not too much of a deal for me. You can try pressing the pistons with hand and see. Now if you were to go over to the brake lever and press, watch what happens. Yeah, as long as both the pistons are activated and they come out, it's a good thing. Now hold this fellow in nice and tight and press the brake lever so that this fellow comes out. And now all you need to do is just inspect these pistons for wear, and if there isn't any, like in my case, I find absolutely nothing in there, so I don't have to go ahead and give it a nice rub and clean. It's good the way it is. All I need to do is just hold this in and use my arm power to push it back in. That's about it. 2 pistons back where they belong. So that's a quick, simple clean of the brake caliper system. Of course, you can dismantle the whole of it. You can pull the pistons out and then go ahead and clean it, but only if they are jammed or one of them are jammed. But as long as they're not jammed, as long as you can press the brake lever and you have these fellows come out and go in, then there's absolutely no problems. Going in, I mean by using force, you'll have to push them in and again press on the levers. If you find them come out, then there's absolutely nothing for you to do. You're good with the way things are. So that's one part of it. The second part of it, which is the most important part, that is, what is this? Why do I run sintered brake pad on my machine? Sintered brake pads are metallic brake pads. I mean, there's all sorts of metals here fused together, not by heat, by melting, but by pressure. So these are metallic bits that have been fused together by pressure. A lot of pressure being applied, and this, of course, it generates heat, but this is technically not a byproduct of melting. It's more like a byproduct of forging. And why use a sintered brake pad? This is EBC sintered brake pad, quite expensive. I paid about $2,500 for a set, and they have lasted as long as my stock brake pads would, or in fact I would say even more. There's still truckloads of brake pad left. And why do I use this? It's because this offers at least 2 times the bite of the regular organic pads. Aggressive bite. I mean, only when you are used to a lot of hard braking, you will find them useful. But if you guys are people who do gentle city rides, then this may not be much of a deal for you. This is only for people who do aggressive off-road riding and want to use the brakes a lot, especially with trail riding, where you are forced to use the brake 3/4 of the time, and front brake especially. So this comes in handy there, and this works better as and when the heat builds up, is because this has very good heat tolerance, unlike the organic pads which feel pathetic the more the heat builds up. So it's always good to go ahead with sintered brake pads if you guys have specific needs, like aggressive braking needs. And this will definitely last longer than your stock brake pads, the organic ones that come along with the machine. And the only downside to this is quite squeaky. And this is quite loud, and it takes a decent amount of time in the morning to get warmed up. This performs better only when you warm it up, and so it's good that you use it only if you know that you are hard on the front brakes, and not this is not something that I would recommend for people who are all about subtle city riding. And I don't think the Himalayan is a motorcycle meant for city rides. So get these, and you will definitely find that you have solved your front brake issue. I can't call it an issue. The way the vehicle is designed is for it to have a softer, spongier front brake, but this will definitely help with a nice bite. Remember, this works best only after some time of you braking. So the moment you get out of your house in the morning, don't end up assuming that your brake is going to be as nice as it was when you came back home last evening from all that riding. So this has to get warmed up for it to perform really well. And yep, those are the pads. So another thing with servicing your brake pad components is to give this pin a nice clean. Okay, so that's super smooth now. I used a 600 grit sandpaper on this just to take off the muck and the dirt that is built up over a long time. And I haven't gone ahead and done a fantastic job of anything, is because I keep doing this periodically, and I don't really want it to become all shiny and bright. And the next thing to do is to apply a bit of multi-purpose grease. Because they have a natural orientation, it's pretty easy for you to figure out which one goes where. And now we shove the pin in. And get it to align. Give it a nice tap on the top, like that. And put the shove the split pin into the hole like that, and there you go. A nice and decent service of the brake caliper system done. So that's the whole of it back in place. Now all you need to do is put these bolts in with a bit of, so that's some thread lock going into the caliper assembly. and so I know how much is how good. If you guys are not so sure about any of this, give it a hand tight, take it to a mech and ask him if it's good enough, because this is a steel bolt going into an aluminium casting, and you don't want to break any of these joints, is because too much of pressure here and you will have this brake free from the joint. So it's always good to know how much is how good. Now if you were to just check, so that's another video that comes to an end. All the components put back together, everything working fine the way they're supposed to, and now it's time to head out for a ride. So if you guys like the video, give it the usual thumbs up, and also if you have any questions you can ask in the comments section and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. So yep, keep supporting, and I will continue to make these wonderful videos for you. So this is Ben signing out for now. Ciao.